Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Chef Vic Cuisine. Today, we're making an apple pie, a classic American staple pastry dish. You and your loved ones are going to love each slice of this beautiful pie. Now, earlier on my channel, I released an apple pie cookie recipe, but now I want to give you all a traditional way to make an apple pie as well. So, let's get started.
Alright, so for the crust, we're going to need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter, chilled, and then we're going to cube them. You're going to need 3/4 cup of vegetable shortening, chilled, and then about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of ice water. And now for the filling of the apple pie, we're going to need about 6 large apples, cored, peeled, and sliced into about 1/4 inch thick slices, which will be about 10 to 12 cups worth. For this, I'm using Honeycrisp apples. Then we're going to need 1/2 cup of granulated white sugar, 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, spoon and leveled. Then we're going to need the zest and the juice of 1 lemon, which will be about 2 teaspoons plus 2 tablespoons worth of juice. And then we're going to need 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and then 1 large egg, and finally 1 tablespoon of milk. And then optionally for a topping, we can use some raw sugar. So to get things started, we're going to chop up our butter into smaller, tiny pieces. And as you saw before in the ingredients list, I already had them into 6 tablespoon slices, but you want to take a sharp knife and cut down your butter into about 1/2 inch cubes. You want to limit the amount of times you touch the butter, as the heat from your hand will cause the butter to start to melt. So handle the butter gently, and once you're done cutting it all into tiny pieces, you can go ahead and put it back in the fridge so that it can chill until you're ready to use it. And the same thing goes for the vegetable shortening. The main difference between the butter and the shortening is its texture. The shortening is pretty brittle, so scooping out the 3/4 cup that you need will break it into tiny pieces. So there shouldn't be a real need to chop those pieces into anything smaller. So now in a large food processor, we want to mix together the flour and the salt until it's well combined. Next, we want to add the chopped butter, about 1 tablespoon at a time, to the food processor and pulse it to allow it to mix evenly within the flour and the salt. And then once you've added all of the chopped butter, we can go ahead and start adding in the chopped shortening as well. Also, just 1 tablespoon at a time, so you can give the processor a chance to mix it into the flour evenly. And separately, you want to measure about 3/4 cup of water in either a measuring cup or a glass. And then into that glass, you want to add ice and then stir it around to chill the water. And then once the water is nice and chilled, you can remove the ice, which would cause excess water that is from the melted ice, so that only 3/4 cup of water remains. Because if you allowed the ice to completely melt in the water, you might end up with a soggy dough, which is definitely something we want to avoid. So now you want to drizzle the cold water into the food processor about 2 tablespoons at a time. And you want to pulse the mixture sparingly after each drizzle of water. You want to stop adding the water once you see the dough begin to form into large clumps. So as you can see, it's at this stage when the dough is pretty much formed, and you can remove the dough from the food processor and you can transfer it to a lightly floured working surface. And just a note, the dough at this point should come together pretty easily and not feel too sticky. So, using a lightly floured working surface and floured hands, you want to fold the dough into itself until the flour is fully incorporated into the fats of the butter. And so once you have a nice manageable ball of dough, you want to form it into a ball shape and then divide the ball almost in half. One of the balls should be slightly larger. This will be the dough you use for the base of the pie, and the other side will be used for the topping. You want to form both of the balls into flatter, about 1 inch thick discs. So as far as ratios are concerned when it comes to the different sizes of the dough balls, I normally aim for a 60-40 split. But once you have both of the dough balls rolled out into the flatter 1 inch discs, you want to wrap each tightly in plastic wrap and then refrigerate them for at least 2 hours. And while those refrigerate, we can start working on the filling of the pie. So for each of your apples, you're going to need to core them, peel them, and slice them. Luckily, I have a KitchenAid with this really cool feature that allows it to do all of the peeling and slicing and coring for you. This saves so much time, and I can't recommend a better investment for anyone's kitchen. So depending on the size of your apples, you might want to use more than just 6. You ultimately want to end up with about 10 to 12 cups worth of apple slices. Oh, and don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified when my next video drops. And stay tuned until the end of this video for a sneak peek of the recipe coming next week. So once I had all my apples sliced, I went back with a knife to cut those slices into smaller bits, just so that each bite of the pie could have really tiny bits of apple in it. So you want to aim for about the same size slices as I did in this video. And so once you have all your apples sliced, you can place those slices into a large size bowl. Next up we have the lemon, and all you want to do is zest the peel using a microplaner, and you'll want to use the entire peeled lemon to create the amount of zest that you need. And I just normally like to slice the lemon in half just to get it ready for a handheld juicer. So in the large size bowl, we want to stir together the apple slices with the sugar, the flour, lemon zest, lemon juice, and then follow it up with adding the cinnamon, the allspice, the nutmeg, and the ground cloves all together. So you want to stir this mixture together until all the apple slices are well coated. So once they're all coated, we can set this mixture aside and allow it to rest. And aside from an apple pie, this mixture itself would be really tasty as a snack. All I would do is omit the flour, and this coating of the apple slices is so delicious on its own. But back to the recipe, you want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius. And then on a floured working surface, you want to roll out the larger dough disc, and you can go ahead and keep the other one in the fridge for now. And you want to just turn and flip the dough after every few rolls until the dough is about 12 inches in diameter. And in this video, I rolled out the dough larger than 12 inches in diameter, which is fine. I'll show you how to use the excess dough later on in the recipe. So you want to spray a 9-inch by 2-inch pie pan with a non-stick spray. And then you want to carefully place the flattened out dough into the pan, tucking it in using your fingers and smoothing it out as needed. You just want to be gentle with this process just so that the pie crust doesn't break. And as you can see, we have plenty of overhang on the pie pan, and we're going to make use of it. So at this stage, we can remove the other disc of dough from the fridge, and we can roll out that dough into a similar 12-inch diameter. And for this recipe, we're going to lattice the pie crust. And so to make the lattices, I normally just use a dough cutter. It's really easy to create long strips of dough using that. So for this particular pie, I want to create some braided lattice pieces. So I'm going to create some thinly sliced dough strips to use as well. So I'm going to move aside the wider lattice strips so I can show you how to make a braided lattice strip. And the process is really easy. So you want to align all 3 thinly sliced dough strips together, and you want to pinch the top of all 3 together. And to braid them, all you need to do is take the right strip and move it to the middle. And then next, you want to move the left strip over the new middle strip so that it becomes the new middle. And you just want to continue this pattern, moving the new outer right across the middle, and then moving the new outer left strip across the middle until all the dough is all been braided. And you can do this for as many of the lattice strips as you desire. And so if you're ever looking for a way to braid pie crust, I hope you can look towards this video for inspiration. And so for this pie, I wanted to make 3 braided strips, but I've seen many pies that had fully braided lattice tops, which looks pretty cool as well. So feel free to experiment with your own pie when you make it. So now back to the base of the pie. You want to spoon in the filling into the crust and discard any of the leftover juices from the bottom of the bowl. If you were to pour in those juices as your pie baked, it would become too soggy and then the crust on the bottom would fall apart. Trust me, there's enough trapped juice within the filling that'll make this pie super juicy and delicious. So once all the filling's within the pie pan, you just want to make sure that it's all at an even height. And once it is, you can go ahead and start adding on the layers of the lattice top. And I normally like to work one direction and then place the remaining lattice strips in a perpendicular direction to the first. And you could leave the layers of the lattice top as they are, as you see in the video, but what I like to do is interlock them for better presentation and a more secure apple pie. And my best way to tell you how to go about it is just for you to follow the steps I do in the video as far as interlocking the lattice top is concerned. And you can always feel free to slow down this portion of the video just so you can get a better eye's view of how I interlock the dough. But once you're satisfied with how the top of your pie looks, you want to take your dough cutter and cut away all of the excess dough that's overhanging from the pie pan. And we're going to use that dough to form the crust between the base and the lattice top. And for presentation purposes, we're going to crimp or flute the edges of the pie. And that way we can seal it together. Here I'm going to use the pinch method to flute the pie crust. And so all that is taking your thumb and index finger of one hand and creating a pinch, and then using the index finger of your other hand to press the dough into the pinch of your other hand so you create that flute. You're going to carry this pattern all the way around the circumference of the pie. And with that, your pie is almost ready for baking. So now what we need to do is create our egg wash. And so in a small bowl, you want to whisk the egg and the milk together to create the egg wash. And then you want to lightly brush the top of the crust with this egg wash. And then, as I mentioned before, it's optional, but what I like to do is sprinkle on the raw sugar over the top of the pie. And so we want to place the pie pan onto a large baking sheet, and you want to bake the pie for about 20 to 22 minutes. And after that time, we want to add aluminum foil to cover the top of the pie to prevent it from browning too much. And then at this point, you also want to turn the temperature down from 400 degrees Fahrenheit to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, or 190 degrees Celsius. And then bake the pie for an additional 30 to 35 minutes. And after it's finished baking, you can remove it from the oven and allow the pie to cool for about 3 hours before serving. And just like that, you've made your very own apple pie. Perfect for the upcoming fall season. This pie fills your home with so many fragrant and beautiful aromas, while each slice of the pie is absolutely mouth-watering, and I can't wait for you all to try it too. And with this pie, you want to cover any leftovers tightly and store them in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. But you also have the option of freezing this pie for up to 3 months, as long as it's in an airtight or tightly wrapped container. And you can thaw it in the refrigerator overnight and then microwave it to your desired temperature. As always, this recipe and many more can be found in my cookbook, Chef Vic Cuisine Volume 2, Elevating Your Inner Chef. And that's available on Amazon, and I'll be sure to leave a link to that in the description box. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified when my next video drops. And stay tuned for next week, where I try to make these really easy to make, yet super delicious crepes. Well, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week on another episode of Chef Vic Cuisine, and until then, peace.